All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to dive into a pretty brutal truth about human connection, and that is exactly why fairy tales completely ruin love. Look, if you've ever felt like your romantic life is just fundamentally broken, or if you constantly find yourself wondering why relationships have to be so incredibly hard, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Today's source material basically takes a sledgehammer to all those illusions we've been fed since childhood, and it reveals why our modern relationship expectations are just completely backward. So let's start with the million-dollar question, right? Why do most relationships fail? I mean, we've literally all asked ourselves this after a really tough breakup. But as our source material brilliantly points out, relationships aren't actually failing because love is some deeply complicated, unknowable mystery. No, they're failing because we've been taught complete nonsense about how they actually work in the real world. Think about it. We've been set up to fail right from the start. We learned about relationships from Disney movies, from romantic comedies, and yeah, from our parents, who, let's be honest, were probably just winging it too. We go into relationships expecting absolute magic, the seamless happily ever after. But then, when reality inevitably hits us like a brick wall, we immediately panic and think we must be doing something wrong. The truth? That expectation of magic is the actual problem. Okay, so let's break this down. We really have to strip away what we call the fairy tale lie. I'm talking about those super toxic expectations of telepathy or finding a flawless soulmate, or this crazy idea that someone out there is going to magically complete you. Instead, we have to face the brutal reality of what a partnership actually requires, and that is clear communication, being two already complete people, and putting in shared effort. To bridge that gap, our analysis introduces one of the most practical analogies you will probably ever hear.
Section
1. The roommate rule. So what is a romantic relationship, really? Fundamentally, it's exactly like living with a roommate. You share space, you split responsibilities, and you have to tolerate each other's really annoying habits. I mean, sometimes you love hanging out, and other times you literally want to pull your hair out because they left their dishes in the sink again. The only real difference here is that you also kiss this roommate and share deep feelings with them. But the kissing, it doesn't magically change the mechanics of living together. The basic roommate rules about personal space, chores, and money absolutely still apply. And that brings us to a huge reality check. Love is not telepathy. This lie that, if they really loved me, they would just know what I need, is toxic. It destroys more relationships than almost anything else. Love is caring enough to listen when someone tells you what they need, and then remembering the important stuff. But, they have to actually share it with you first. Seriously, expecting mind reading is literally like expecting your roommate to automatically know you're out of milk without you ever telling them. It's just absurd. Nobody is psychic, yet we fight about this constantly. When adults fight over unsaid needs, it carries the exact same energy as a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum over a cookie. As adults, we have to actually use our words, rather than just screaming until someone hands us the cookie. Section 2, 3 survival needs. So, if we drop the tantrums and we drop the telepathy, what does a relationship actually need to survive? Well, think of it kind of like a plant. A plant fundamentally needs water, sunlight, and soil, right? In a partnership, those core requirements are clear communication, realistic expectations, and 2 complete people. These are the 3 essential pillars that keep any relationship alive. Let's look closer at that first pillar. Saying I'm fine when you are absolutely not fine, that isn't taking the high road, it's literal relationship poison. It forces the other person to play a guessing game. Clear communication means saying exactly what you mean. Things like, hey, I feel ignored when you're on your phone during dinner. Or, I'm really stressed about money and we need to sit down and talk about our budget. Which brings us to a massive truth bomb about those next 2 pillars. The absolute most toxic belief in modern dating is you complete me. Look, your partner is not your therapist, and they are not your entertainment committee. That covers the realistic expectations part. Furthermore, 2 incomplete people trying to mash together to become one whole person, that doesn't create a healthy relationship. It creates codependency, a dynamic where you rely entirely on each other for your self-worth. You need your own friends, your own hobbies, and your own identity for a relationship to actually thrive. Section 3. Compatible problems. Okay, we need to completely redefine compatibility and finally move away from the fairy tale of the one. Because the reality is, there is no the one. There are probably thousands of people out there in the world with whom you could have a truly great relationship, provided you both put in the work. Obsessing over destiny is incredibly dangerous. It makes people stay in terrible, toxic situations because they think a specific person is their fate, or on the flip side, they abandon perfectly good relationships just because their partner doesn't feel magically perfect every single day. The real secret to compatibility isn't about having everything in common. It's about having compatible problems. Because guess what? Everyone comes with baggage. The question you should be asking isn't, is this person perfect? It's, are their problems the kind I can actually deal with? Manageable annoyances, like leaving dishes in the sink or maybe forgetting an anniversary, those are compatible problems. But screaming when angry or outright refusing to ever admit fault, those are incompatible problems. Those are fundamental character flaws that will eventually make you miserable. Because of all our fairy tale expectations, we so often confuse toxic emotional chaos and drama for deep passion. But here's a hot take for you. Healthy love is actually kind of boring. I know, it sounds controversial, but healthy love is just two people who generally get along, solve problems together, and genuinely enjoy each other's company. There are no constant emotional roller coasters, no dramatic screaming matches followed by passionate movie-style reunions. Real love feels incredibly stable, supportive, and peaceful. Section 4, the relationship toolbox. So how exactly do we maintain this stable, peaceful, beautifully boring love? Well, relationships require actual, actionable skills that honestly, nobody bothers to teach us. We're talking about conflict resolution, so you can fight fair. Emotional regulation, so you don't just dump your feelings all over your partner. Boundary setting, compromise, and self-awareness. Expecting relationship success without these tools in your toolbox is as crazy as expecting someone to be a great driver when they're blindfolded and have never taken a single lesson. And here is a totally crucial boundary to keep in that toolbox. You cannot love someone into changing. You just can't. You cannot fix them, you cannot heal them, and you can't fave them from themselves. Your only job is to decide if you actually like the person standing in front of you right now. If you're constantly thinking, oh, they'd be perfect if they just changed this one little thing, you aren't in love with them, you are in love with their potential. And let me tell you, that is a guaranteed recipe for resentment. To build something real, we have to adopt much more grounded standards. You want to seek someone who complements your life, not someone who completes it. Expect consistent effort, not perfection. Accept people exactly as they are, or have the wisdom and the courage to just walk away. And above all else, be responsible for your own happiness. Remember, sometimes two really good people are just incompatible due to timing or different life goals. Recognizing that and ending things respectfully isn't a failure at all. It's just real life. So the ultimate reality check is this. Great relationships aren't found, they are built. Once we abandon the Disney fairy tales and all that magical thinking, we can actually roll up our sleeves and get to work. It's just two people deciding to build something together, day by day, constructing a resilient home out of trust, clear communication, and shared experiences. It's a simple concept for sure, but incredibly challenging in execution. But you know, understanding all this makes relationships so much more manageable. Building something real is infinitely better than just sitting around waiting for a fairy tale that's only going to end up ruining your love life anyway. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to reflect on. What relationship myth did you believe for way too long? Take some time to think about the fairy tales you need to unlearn so you can actually start building real love. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.